Okay, thank you for waiting, Shruthi ji. We're going to continue. So we just talked about some of the difficulties you went through, but we're going to continue those later on. One of the most unique characteristics about your style is that with every outfit, you're always repping a bindi. And for a lot of young Indian girls in America, it's slowly becoming a norm to not even wear bindis like with their traditional clothing. Why do you wear bindis, and what do you think is the significance of wearing them in your life?
Yeah, I get asked this question quite often, even from people that are currently living in India. They tell me, hey, like even no one here even wears a bindi with traditional outfits or any outfits at all. Um, and so I think there are a few different um, reasons, and I'm going to list them out. There's a couple of different reasons as to why I wear one and what it means to me. So starting, the first one is, of course, I remember literally from the day I was born, my mom put a bindi on me, right, as a little baby, and she also had one. So everyone in my family, it was something normal that we did. So I guess it is a part of who I am and my identity. And I did that while I lived in India. So it was just a part of our everyday life. I didn't really question it until I was older. And I was wondering, hey, what is really the significance of wearing this? Why do we wear this? And those questions came up maybe in my teenage years. After I moved to America, I was like, why do I need to wear this? No one's wearing this. And when I did wear it, people would make fun of it. So that led me to question, I guess, the deeper meaning of why I should wear a bindi beyond the fact that, oh, everyone in my family did it, or we just always did. You know, I wanted more answers. So I started kind of asking my parents and asking, I guess, while I like kind of exploring where this comes from. And it actually, well, in the Hindu belief or belief system, we do believe that it represents your third eye, correct? So the energy that is on in your, it's your I guess the concentrated energy that's right here. It's supposed to protect our third eye. When you put the bindi on, it's supposed to enhance your third eye and protect you from evil. So there's a lot of different meanings that we assign to wearing a bindi. And for me, it's more of a spiritual reason why I wear it. Plus, along with the fact that it makes me feel like I reconnect with my culture. Even though I don't live in India anymore, even though I live in a different country, I don't think I should change my identity and who I am and what I believe in just because I live somewhere else. So I think the bindi is something, it's very, there's a lot of different reasons. And my mom still wears it every single day, even she'll wear it to work. And people will still ask her or stare at her, and, you know, people will make weird comments and such, but I think it's truly a part of who I am. So whether I'm wearing Western clothes or Indian clothes, it doesn't really matter. It's more, I guess it's more of a spiritual reason why I wear the bindi. And also, I think it's helped me show off like how proud I am of where I come from. I think when I wear one, like people definitely know where I'm from. Like they assume I'm from India, and for me, that's a beautiful thing. It's something that I'm really proud of. And I think when someone wears a bindi, it just, I don't know what it is. I can't even explain it. When I see a South Asian like person wearing a bindi, there's just something with it. I feel like there's just like a light that just like shines. And we have a word for it in my language, in Malayalam, but I don't really know how to explain it in English. It's just like you just feel this like vibrancy from somebody who's wearing it. And that's every time I wear it, every in the morning when I put it on, I just feel like me, you know, and it's just a part of who I am. And I always encourage people, like, if you feel connected to it in a spiritual way or even culturally, you should wear it without worrying about what other people think of you. And that's kind of like the journey that I've been on. And I hope to inspire people, especially people that follow me on social media. I always hope to inspire them to kind of find their own journey in wearing all these cultural symbols. Yeah.
That's awesome. I definitely love wearing bindis too every time I get to wear South Asian clothing. How many do you have? Like, this is just a random question.
Oh my gosh, I have a ton. I'm always asking my family to bring them from India, or I'll get them myself here. But usually the most common one that I wear, this one that I always draw it on myself with eyeliner every morning, just because I don't know, I just love making the perfect bindi on forehead. Like every morning I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a good Bindi day. And instead of like using a sticker, I do personally prefer just drawing it on my own because that's how I kind of did it growing up in India. So yeah.
Okay, I drew this too, but it's not as round as yours.
You
So
look great.
thank you. So what sort of empowerment do you feel like your fusion fashion provides to the individuals that follow your Instagram page? And who do you think this type of empowerment is targeted to at the end of the day?
I think for me, it really stemmed like I wanted people to hear the message that it's okay to be from two different places. Like I moved here when I was 12, around 12 years old. So I really came in the middle of my, like now I'm like double that age. So I just came right in the middle of my like teenage years and I had this identity crisis. Like, was I American? Was I Indian? I was all over the place. I felt really lost. And I think when it comes to Indo-Western or fusion fashion, what it really allows you to do is connect with both sides of who you are. You don't have to be stuck in just one or the other. You don't have to put yourself in a box. I believe that we are all multi-dimensional beings and we have so many different sides to us and we don't need a certain thing. Like in fashion especially, you don't need to limit yourself to just one or the other. You can do both and you can do both very beautifully together. And just because you're wearing Indian clothes doesn't mean you can't incorporate your Western style as well. So I think understanding that we aren't just, you know, one-dimensional creatures, we have so many sides, and being able to express that in fashion, that's what I really hope that people are able to take away from the Indo-Western fashion that I put out. I hope it inspires them to kind of accept the different sides of who they are and just be proud of who they are.
That's great, thank you. So do you think that our ancient traditions would have even survived without these fashion trends and designs continuing here in America?
I think, well, since we do have such a long history, India has such a long history, and especially Hinduism, it's been around for so long. And I don't think it would be easy to erase something like that because it is truly, I believe it's truly a part of us, whether we even know it or not, or whether we're aware of it or not. I think a lot of these things we kind of carry within ourselves. And but I can see after generations of being in a different country that you could lose touch with where you came from or where your ancestors are from, right? So fashion does give you that chance to kind of explore this and explore it in a way that you can still reconnect with your roots. Like even if you're born here, even if you're not from India, you can still wear these things and feel connected to where your ancestors or your parents, your grandparents, they came from. So fashion is a much easier way of kind of connecting with it because a lot of people don't, you know, they don't want to go and like read the Vedas or like go back into, you know what I mean? Like if you don't want to do all of that work, I guess fashion is one stepping stone to kind of understanding that deeper meaning and your roots in a way. So yeah, I think fashion does make it more accessible. It's not the only way, but it is one way for us to kind of reconnect with our roots and our culture.
Definitely. Do you think that fashion can portray a political statement? And if so, have you ever attempted to make a statement with your creativity?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think fashion can make many political statements. I guess for me, rather than making political statements, kind of I like to use my art to inspire emotion in people, whether that becomes political, that's, you know, that's really up to them. Like how somebody takes it is very different from how I'm maybe even putting it out there. So there are so many people coming from so many different perspectives. And that's the special thing about social media. You can put something out as a piece of art and hundreds of thousands of people can take it in so many different ways. So you never really know what the art you're putting out, you don't know what it's going to be perceived as. So I guess when I put something out, I kind of put it out for myself. You know, art is also like very therapeutic to me. So I put that out for myself and I hope whoever is seeing it, it will have some sort of positive impact on them. I don't necessarily try to make political statements with my fashion in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you. As an Indian fashion influencer, how do you feel about the cultural appropriation we see in Hollywood today and the American fashion industry in general?
Yeah, this is something I mean, it comes to my attention so often. I have people sending me, screenshots of like a brand stealing Indian culture, Indian clothing, and are like a lot of the times it'll be like very sacred symbols of Hinduism and different things that people don't even understand. They take it and they profit off of it, and it's very upsetting. I think it's wrong. Of course, it's um and I think more of us need to call it out every time we see it. Like when I used to first see it, I would just ignore it and be like, okay, what can I do about this? But now I think on social media, we do have a voice as people. We can step in and call out these companies and brands that are trying to profit off of our culture. And I just posted something on my page about this, about cultural appreciation and appropriation. And appreciating a culture for what it is there's nothing wrong with that. But when you take especially sacred symbols of a specific religion or a culture and you use that in just very inappropriate ways to make profit, that it's just wrong. And I see it happen so often. But even with, especially with yoga, Ayurveda, sometimes I'll be trying to reach out to a brand or work with a brand that I think is really great because they're doing something related to Ayurveda and yoga. And then I realize it's not even a South Asian person that's doing all of this, right? So I think as the audience, as people, we need to be aware of where we're focusing our energy on, who we're giving our money to, because all of that matters. We want to make sure we're giving back to people in our community. Like, we can't just, I guess, let people steal our work and our culture and profit off of that when we face so much discrimination and hate for being who we are, right? So yeah, even like to festivals like Coachella and stuff, I see so many people just wearing the bindi and not knowing at all what it is. I think if you really appreciate it and you know the reasoning behind it, or you're spiritually feeling inclined to wear a bindi, that's different from just wearing it because you think it's cute. So I mean, that's happened so many times when it comes to like even mehndi, like henna, any of that stuff. Like, it happens all the time and it's very unfortunate. And I hope like more of us can stand up against things like that and speak up and hopefully really make a difference when it comes to that.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that. I mean, growing up here in America as well, in schools, you'd always see students, asking so many questions or making remarks against our culture and identity. And then the next thing I know it, they're like, oh, I have yoga class after this, or like, I'm getting a henna tattoo after this at the beach. Like, it's always very two-faced, and it's kind of hurtful, especially growing up, trying to figure out your identity is something that I think a lot of us have struggled with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess feeling like it was erased from us, or like a lot of us aren't, like a majority of us, especially living in America, we're not practicing Ayurveda and yoga like a lot of other people are that aren't even South Asian. So it makes me wonder, because sometimes I would go to a yoga studio and I would feel really alone because I'm the only South Asian person there, So I guess all of those things, like it feels very oppressive that people would steal from your identity, but still, be very racist or discriminate against South Asians in general. So yeah, it's a very I think a lot of us feel the same way towards this issue, and yeah, it definitely needs to be addressed.
Thank you. We tend to see that women are more able to express their fashion in a huge variety with the different jewelry and clothes and bindis that you can buy. How do you think men can express their fashion sense, and what advice do you have for those struggling to express their true identities and what they believe in?
Yeah, I always think about this often because my boyfriend, I would dress up in all these beautiful Indian clothing, and I always wonder, how is it that he can also express himself the same way? Because there aren't too many options available for men, I think, and there aren't many, I guess, male influencers or social media personalities that can really be role models to these young or any men in general. So I guess because even for the only really fashion like that they can wear is like wedding clothes that they would wear to a wedding, like a sherwani or something. But that seems a little bit too extra for everyday wear. So I can see why people might be uncomfortable wearing that on a daily basis. And they don't have jewelry or the bindi, for example, to kind of express themselves, right? Um, Honestly, I'm not really sure. I can't even, I, because I do have a brother, I have a boyfriend, and I can't even think of like different ways that they could express themselves. Maybe they could do it through food or different avenues, but when it comes to fashion, honestly, I hope someone can figure this out. I haven't seen too many male like fashion, like especially South Asian fashion influencers or anything like that. So, but I do hope more of those do come along and we can get some info from them.
Thank you. I just want to make an announcement. At any time, if any of the audience members have questions, feel free to comment on Facebook and YouTube. We're definitely taking these questions in and asking Sruthiji, so speak up. So growing up, I learned that there were many different Hindu gods and goddesses that portrayed a really dark skin tone. And for example, Lord Krishna, Ram, and Shiva, rather than being expressed in like very dark brown colors, they were expressed in blue instead. And at the same time, I would see goddess Parvati and like protagonist Draupadi from the Mahabharata. They're known to have the darker skins too. So we see that in our ancient Hindu history that these gods and goddesses were depicted as beautiful and talented and, you know, divine. Yet now, after colonization and just a Western culture perspective, you see that a lot of young Indian girls and boys struggle on a daily basis with wanting to become lighter or change their skin tone or use Fair and Lovely, these different brands to change their skin tone. Did you ever deal with the problems of colorism growing up?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I grew up in Kerala and it was very normalized to, like, colorism was just a very normalized experience, I think, even amongst like, I have a sister and people would compare me and her saying, oh, your sister is so much lighter, like you should do something to be lighter just like her, right? So even within your own families, people will tell you that you need to be lighter to look beautiful, or you need to stay away from the sun, don't get too dark. Like these are just very common phrases thrown around without, I guess, people realizing the weight of what that really means, especially to young, impressionable people. You start to believe that you're not good enough because of your skin tone, when in reality, if even when you look within spirituality, it doesn't, spiritually speaking, we are all just souls, and that there's no color that defines this physical vessel, this body that we have. Is it doesn't mean anything. The color of the skin means absolutely nothing, but in our society we are made to feel like, you know, those with darker skin tones are somehow inferior, which is very sad because I see how much it's affected so many people mentally over the years. I mean, even telling women, oh, you need to, you know, get lighter so you can get married, and just very, very dehumanizing things like that to people of darker skin tones. I've definitely experienced that. And I think moving to America, it was very eye-opening for me as an immigrant when I first came to this country, and I started seeing people tanning everywhere. And I thought, oh, like all these people that are of lighter skin tone are wanting to be tanner. And back in India, people that are darker are wanting to be lighter. Like it's just, it really opened my eyes to realize that it's really a human problem. Like I obviously God or, you know, any divine power would never discriminate against you based on your skin color. So I think over time I've come to accept and realize that we're all the same. We're all just one consciousness, you know, in different vessels. So I think although I did experience that and it did affect me as a young person, now that I'm much older, I have overcome it to a certain extent, and I still hear comments like that all the time. So it hasn't really gone away, and I hope through more representation of darker skinned people on social media and just portraying that everyone is beautiful regardless of whatever their skin color is. I think showing that on popular platforms like Instagram, for example, has it's been helping people. I'd like to think, and I hope we continue to work on that. Colorism is such a huge huge issue in our communities, and I hope we continue to work on that daily. And especially, I think the biggest thing when it comes to colorism is addressing these comments that family and friends make. I think it's really hard for us to speak up when a family member or a friend says it and you just kind of take it as a joke. But I think we need to start calling out people and kind of questioning, like, hey, why did you say that? Even if it's your own parents, like, you have to kind of step up. If we want to see real change, I think we have to start from within, and we have to start from the people closest to us. So yeah, friends and family, like correcting them and being better ourselves. Like, nobody's perfect, right? Even we have these preconceived notions about skin tones and colors and all of this stuff, even within us, that we may not even know. We might not even realize that we feel that way and think that way because of the way that we were conditioned to feel. So I think it's a lot of inner work and a lot of work to be done within our small, like, inner circles. So once we start from there, I think we can really make a huge difference.
Thank you. I definitely feel like a lot of these conversations are beginning to happen with everything going on in current events. A lot of South Asian Gen Z, people are starting to speak to their families that might have not been raised here in America and might not deal with the situations we deal with here. And I think it's really great that students are really using their voices on Instagram and social media to activate the community and to really use their platform. How do you think you can help target these issues of colorism through the use of your platform?
I think, I've gotten tons of messages from people saying, hey, like, seeing somebody who looked like me, who is, I guess, darker than the standard of beauty, even in India, it's helped them feel better about themselves. So I guess just being myself and showing people that no matter what your skin tone is, you are still beautiful just the way you are. It has nothing to do, like, skin color has nothing to do with you as a human being. And I think just me living my life and being able to succeed in this type of industry where beauty and, like, your looks are kind of the focus of your whole career, right? So I guess being able to thrive in an industry like this, I guess I'm hoping it will inspire people to love themselves for who they are and become more confident. And of course, seeing there's so many other South Asian men and women that are on social media that are doing this work, that have deeper skin tones, that are empowering other people as well. So I think as a collective community, we've been much better at this, and we're growing and we're learning as people, as the young generation. I think we've come so far from where our parents and grandparents used to be. So I have a lot of hope, and I think me just portraying this through fashion, through just the captions that I write, and hopefully, inspiring people to live their best lives. Like, I hope that will in turn give them that confidence to empower themselves and keep going.
So what is your definition of beauty? What do you think beauty is in your perspective?
I mean, I don't believe it's anything to do with your outer, your outer self. I think beauty is 100% from within. If you're a beautiful person on the inside, if you're a beautiful soul, if you have good intentions and you're wanting to make this world a better place, I think that's beautiful. I think your thoughts, like, who you are, your intentions, all of that is what makes up a beautiful person. And it has nothing to do with how you look like on the outside. That's always been my view towards beauty. But I do believe that your fashion, your expression of how you feel on the inside, can be expressed through fashion and makeup and all of those things. So I think if you're beautiful on the inside and you're showcasing that on the outside through your makeup, your fashion, there's nothing wrong with that. That's also, like, such a great way to express yourself. So I think for me, fashion, beauty, or fashion and makeup and all of that is just an expression of your inward beauty. Like, you want to bring out whatever it's inside of you. You want to show it, I guess, in an artistic way outside. That to me is like the two sides of beauty.
So how do you portray your individuality in fashion and beauty?
and especially in a career like this, I guess in this space, it's really easy to feel like you're just like everyone else, like you don't feel unique. But I do believe that each person has something very special and very magical from within. Like when you look within you, there is something within you that nobody else has, and your power is that no one else, like you're the only person that can be you. So for me, whenever I'm creating an outfit or whatever I'm doing, whether it's my artistic expression, it's, I guess, the unique, like who I am is what I'm trying to express through my clothing. So I think it makes, when you truly look within and you learn more about yourself, and as you're growing, you are able to kind of take that and put that out into the world as fashion. I That's what I try and do, and I hope, you know, the things that I do put out there, my clothing, my Indo-Western fusion, I hope all of that is a little glimpse into who I am as a human being, right? So I think that's how I express myself. I want people to see me for who I am and my unique identity. And I think that's what everyone can do through fashion, makeup, even music, art, any type of art that allows you to express yourself. I think it really comes from within and it shines outwardly. So yeah, that's what I kind of do with fashion.
Thank you. So when did you actually start incorporating elements of your culture into your more everyday outfits, and what inspired you to take on that challenge?
I would say I probably started in college, because before that I was really terrified of even showing my culture anywhere, especially in high school. People were mean, and I was new to I had just moved to the country, yeah, in middle school, and I was having a tough time assimilating into the culture. And so what I did, like a lot of people do, was just completely stop doing everything that made me look Indian. I was like, oh, I need to be away from that as much as possible so I can fit in with this new culture, this new country. And that kind of, I kind of went a whole different path, and I never used to wear my Indian jewelry or my bindi or anything. I completely stopped doing all of that. And I felt really disconnected from who I was and where I came from. I was so lost and so confused. And I think in college, I joined a cappella team. And I love to sing, so I joined this a cappella team, and they would do a lot of fusion, like Western and Indian music together. And it was the most beautiful thing, right? And I was so inspired by that experience. I was doing that for a couple of years, and I was so inspired by how seamlessly they kind of tied Western and Indian music together. And it made me realize that I don't have to give up one to be another. So towards the end of my college career is when I kind of started incorporating a lot of Indian clothing and elements into my daily life. And it kind of, yeah, I think music is like one of my biggest inspirations. So it kind of stemmed from music, and kind of, yeah, came into my fashion as well. So yeah, it's only been maybe less than 5 years since I kind of started doing this fully. So I'm pretty new.
That's awesome. So what is one of your favorite songs to sing?
Um, well, I love a lot of Malayalam songs, so I will literally sing anything Malayalam. But I did, when I lived in Kerala, I used to do a little bit of Carnatic music. So I had a few songs in there, like there's one called Maha Garnapatim. I really love that one. So I would sing that a lot as I was a child growing up. So I like a lot of classical music, even though I'm not that great at singing it, I still love to sing it. But any type of literally any type of South Indian music, I love to sing.
I relate to you on that. I grew up learning Carnatic music also, and so my family
Oh, that's
plays
awesome.
Carnatic music in the house. What do you love most about being a Malayali girl? And do you think that being a Malayali allows you to express your beauty in a different way?
Um, I mean, I love Kerala. Everything that has to do with Kerala, I absolutely love. So being a Malayali girl is something that I'm very proud of. Well, fun fact, my mom's dad, so my grandfather is actually from Tamil Nadu. He's from Chennai. So I'm a little bit mixed with Tamil and Malayali. So I'm like pretty much just a South Indian girl, I guess. But yeah, I think being Malayali specifically, I just love so much of the culture and just the music, the arts. I just think it's beautiful. And even Kerala itself, I don't know if you've ever been, it's one of the most beautiful places. It's just green and lush and full of coconut trees, and it's just great. Everything about it I absolutely love. So I guess I can't pick just one thing. I think the whole culture and the whole vibe and the people, of course, are just really, really amazing. Yeah.
I've not been to Kerala, but I'm dying to go. Recently, you said you started practicing Ayurveda and yoga a lot. Can you explain to us your journey on that and why you even stepped into that in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my home in the village in Kerala, the opposite of our house was a little Ayurvedic hospital. So ever since I was young, that's the only hospital I knew. I didn't even know there were any other hospitals that did anything else. So whenever we'd have any sort of issues or any sort of ailments, we would just go there, get some herbal medicine that the doctor would prescribe, and come home and kind of follow through with that. And we would do a lot of Ayurvedic treatments there. And I guess when I moved here, I kind of forgot about all of it. I just, I left that behind, and I never really practiced it or thought of why I did those certain things there and what the benefits were for me. And I guess even in college, I just felt like, oh, I had no time for that. There was just no time to incorporate any of that. I was just busy with school and my friends. And once I was finished with school, that's when I started. I actually started specifically looking back into Ayurveda because I was experiencing a lot of allergic reactions and symptoms to a lot of the foods that I was eating. So I was started becoming allergic to dairy and gluten and a lot of these things. And I thought, why am I experiencing these things? Everyone else seems to be fine with eating whatever they want and just being okay. So I started looking into that, and that's when I came across a lot of different Ayurvedic practitioners, and they were kind of showing the right way to eat for your certain body type. And I realized a lot of these foods that I'm allergic to here, I never used to eat when I was in India. So I think my body just wasn't aligned with a lot of the foods, American foods that I was consuming, especially as a college student. I was eating very unhealthy, and my body just wasn't feeling very happy with it. So I started kind of exploring and kind of relearning all the different things that, like what it meant to eat in an Ayurvedic way, like even the way you eat, the way that your energy is while you eat, the way your energy is while you cook, all of those things matter when it comes to Ayurvedic eating and that practice in general. So I learned a lot about being aware and conscious of the choices that we make every day, especially when it comes to food. And in Ayurveda, especially, they say the gut is another mind. So the things that you put in your body, the different types of, even, for example, like they say, if you're, for example, like eating an animal that's been through a lot of suffering and you consume that, it becomes a part of your energy as well. So as I started learning about a lot of these things, I understood why my body wasn't happy with the choices that I was making, the types of foods that I was putting into it. So I started my journey of kind of learning more about that, kind of switching up my diet and seeing if it even had any real results. And it absolutely transformed my life. I think in the past few years, I've just become more happier, just healthier overall, mentally, just a lot better. Like I have a lot more mental clarity as opposed to when I was eating really unhealthy foods. And now that I'm following this Ayurvedic, I'm also vegan now. So this Ayurvedic vegan lifestyle, I wouldn't say it's a diet at any, in any sense of that word. It's more of a lifestyle. And once I made that part of my life, it like transformed me from the inside out. And I also realized my parents, they naturally already do this, but I kind of did my own thing when I was in college and kind of started eating whatever I wanted. So Ayurveda now has become such a huge part of my life. And even my mom would be really surprised. She's like, oh, I didn't know you knew this, or I didn't know you actually follow this. It's just so, you didn't seem to care about this in your teenage years and in college, but now I'm so happy that you're doing this. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey, and it's transformed my life. And I definitely want to start sharing more about that on my social media, because I think a lot of people are experiencing a lot of these health issues that stem from our eating habits here in the West. So yeah, I hope I can learn more and hopefully expand on that and kind of educate people as I go along and inspire people to get on, this journey as well.
Thank you for sharing. Other than practicing Ayurveda, are there any other traditions that you follow on a daily basis?
Yes, I mean, of course, like yoga and meditation are like two, very important things in my life that I never took seriously growing up. I just thought, that's just something people do. I didn't really believe in it. I guess I just thought it was just tradition. But as I started getting older and as I started getting more stressed, my mental health wasn't as great. I was getting a lot more anxiety, things like that. And I started, looking inwards to see, hey, how can I help myself? Like, what can I change to be the best version of me? And doing yoga and yoga, it's more than just an exercise. I think a lot of people have this idea that yoga is like another type of exercise, and it's not at all. It's a way of being. And even when you're practicing breathing techniques and all of that, it's not necessarily to practice it, it's to be it. And I guess in the modern way of people looking at yoga, I've even seen like goat yoga and underwater yoga and just crazy variations of yoga itself, when I think we've come so far from what it was originally meant to be, that especially us as being South Asian, we need to kind of look back and see why our ancestors, or why, people back in the day, like why they did this. Like clearly, I think it has a lot to do with having better mental health. These eating habits, doing yoga, doing meditation, like all of these things are to enhance us to be the best version of ourselves, and to enhance us on this journey towards, seeking and liberation, whatever it is that we're seeking, and our path to liberation. All of these things are going to help us along the way. So I think as South Asian, like young adults, like we definitely need to look inward and see why we stopped doing these certain things and how it can benefit us, because these were given to us from our ancestors. These yogic sciences, Ayurvedic sciences, these are actual sciences that have been proven for thousands and thousands of years. So I think before we start looking into what else is available, I think what our parents and our grandparents have given to us, I think we need to kind of look at that and see how these things can benefit you. And that's what I started doing, in my 20s, and it's transformed my life. Especially, I think it's transformed my mental health, and that's like the biggest, I think that's what a lot of people are struggling with at this time as well. So I would definitely suggest for young people to start looking into these things, because I think we have this notion that it's just tradition, but I think there's so much that we can learn and benefit from if we just give it a chance and kind of look inward and within our culture.
Definitely. I mean, yoga literally translates to the joining and like the unification of your body, mind, and soul. And, I think a lot of people today in America focus a lot on their physical health more than their mental health, and then even more so than their spiritual health. But in our Hindu Dharma, we learn that physical, mental, and spiritual health need to combine and need to all be practiced the same amount of time to live a happier life. And I think a lot of young professionals don't really focus on their mental health or spiritual health. So was there a time where you really struggled with your mental health and then you realized that you needed to start practicing these things to find a balance within yourself?
Yeah, I think a lot of us go through this in our 20s. 20s is it's just a time of questioning a lot of different things. You start questioning the way you were brought up, you start questioning different values that are out in the world, and it's that time where you're really turning into an adult, and you go through a lot of turmoil, pretty much like a mid-20s crisis, essentially. Questioning who you are, what your purpose is on this earth, and kind of finding what your path is. And I think that's what started happening to me in my early 20s. I was really questioning who I am and what I'm doing and what my purpose is in this world. So I was feeling very lost. And I think aligning myself back into my purpose required me to go back and figure out, mentally, how can I get better, spiritually, like who am I and where am I going, and what do I believe in? All of these things I had to question, and I think it's a good thing to question all these things. It's better than just blindly believing. You have to question and you have to come to your own conclusions. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about Hinduism. It's there's so many paths. There's an individual path for every single person. There's not just one singular way. Like in many other religions. Have actually studied very many different religions because of all of these questions that I had. So I think when it comes specifically to Hinduism, I just love that there's so many different paths for each person to reach their destination or to reach their liberation. So I do believe that we need to take our mental and spiritual health much more seriously. Like, we're focused on maybe the intellectual health or even our physical health, but our mental and our spiritual health are the basis of who we are. And without that, nothing else will, like, you can't really do much else. So I think a lot of us are coming to that understanding, especially in our community, how important mental and spiritual health really is. And I hope more young people can also learn that and do that inner work for themselves as well.
Thank you for sharing. I think that's definitely something I love about being a Hindu, is that you might learn from your parents one way to follow rituals and traditions, but at the end of the day, you're allowed to go in your own direction and find your own path and go on your own journey to fulfill what makes you happy in life. And I think that's something I really love about being Hindu. Do you think you're more religious or spiritual?
From a very young age, my parents have been very open about how I choose to live my life, and they've never imposed any religious beliefs on me. They told me, you go out there and figure out who you are and who you want to be. So I think after exploring a lot of different organized religion per se, I've come to a place where I accept everyone and everything, and I'm on more of a spiritual journey, a spiritual path, than I would say a specific set of like religious, I guess, a religious way or like a certain set of laws or rules that I'm following as a religious person. I'm definitely more spiritual. And even I've had this discussion with many of my friends, even from different religions, and they say that they're more spiritual than religious. And I think a lot of young people are feeling that way. We don't necessarily believe in a lot of the traditions, but as I'm learning more about these traditions and where they come from and what they mean, I'm also realizing all of those things align perfectly well with spirituality. So even though the traditions may look strange to us or they might not make sense, a lot of those traditions are aligned with your spiritual journey. So I think on your journey, especially when you're spiritual, you will start to realize and understand why, I guess, religious people do what they do as well. So I think it goes hand in hand. Religion does play a part in spirituality and vice versa. So it's a mix of both, but I would say I'm leaning more towards the spiritual side of things. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. We have a couple questions from the audience. One question is radical feminism at odds with traditional Hindu beauty standards?
Let me think about that one for a second. Is it at odds with Hindu beauty standards? But what do Hindu beauty standards really mean? And as far as like, defined in the Vedas or any of the sacred books, I'm not sure if there's a specific set of beauty standards set forth by, Hinduism as a whole. So I'm not really sure how to answer that question, because I mean, if you guys can inform me, that would be really great. But yeah, I don't think there's necessarily one way of being. I think in Hinduism, I think the beauty of it is that it's the soul and it's what's within. It's more than just what's on the outside. So I'm not really sure that there's a set of rules that says, hey, this is what's beautiful, or this is what's beautiful in this specific culture or religion.
Thank you. So another question we have from the audience is, what is your opinion regarding sustainable clothing, fashion, and practices? And how do you feel as though you have been able to inculcate those aspects in your life?
Yeah, I mean, as a fashion influencer, as a creator, I'm always thinking about these things and the implications of, fast fashion and the fashion industry as a whole and what it's doing, to people and the earth, right? And I always think about the word sustainability, and it seems like something new and something, very very whitewashed these days. I think a lot of sustainable brands will just show you one way of being sustainable, and it's these like very minimal vibes and very like a very specific way to be sustainable. And I think growing up living in India, it was something so natural to be sustainable. You don't buy clothes every other week. You buy clothes when you need them, and you don't have 10 shoes. You have 2 shoes, and you wear that until you can't wear it anymore, and you go from there. So I think uh, living in a Western society, I mean, me personally, even I've fallen to the, like shopping and addiction, and that I guess like the whole capitalism, this capitalist society, when you live in it, you kind of become a part of it. And it's really hard to, as a fashion influencer, for me to take myself out of there and kind of think back to how I lived sustainably back home without even realizing it was sustainable. And I think a lot of the things that our parents tell us, like, hey, you don't need that, or you don't need so many of these things, I used to take it as like, oh, like, my parents are just being difficult. But that's truly using what you have and reusing what you have is the most sustainable option, right? So I think when it comes to fashion, that's what I try and do, is take a lot of the clothes and a lot of the stuff that I already have in my closet, and I try to incorporate them in different ways, whether that's through Indo-Western fusion or even thrifted clothes with high-end clothes, mixing and matching a lot of these things and teaching people how to wear one outfit in 5 different ways, kind of teaching other people that you don't need new things every day. And I think that's like the most sustainable way to live, is to not buy so often. And I guess on social media, when somebody's wearing something new every day and posting about that, it does kind of get difficult. So even for me, it's definitely an issue that I struggle with. I want people to know that it's okay to reuse the things that are already in your wardrobe and things like that as well. So sustainability, it's something that I think about very often, and I try to incorporate more sustainable practices into the way that I showcase my fashion online, because I know a lot of the stuff that I put out, it is a lot of people are affected by it and a lot of people are influenced by it. And I definitely want to do right, I want to spread the right message, not a message that, oh, you need something new or expensive every day. That's not my message at all. I think the beauty in fashion is that you can use one thing 100 different ways, and that's that's essentially the root of being sustainable, is to make sure that you're not wasteful, and you're able to reuse the things that you already have instead of buying new things. So a lot of these things that I try and incorporate into my captions and share with people how you can thrift and stuff like that. But I think I have a long way to go. I'm not perfect by any means, and there's just such a long journey. But I know it's better that if I make small changes rather than no change at all. So I'm trying little things here and there to get better, and I hope I can. And it's a dream of mine in the future to fully be living a sustainable, like even in fashion, to be fully sustainable. So hopefully these little changes I make now can impact me and my audience in the future. So yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. And I'm even doing a lot of research and kind of learning from people that are already in the sustainable space, so I can be better and hopefully learn and grow.
Thank you. One more question we have from the audience is that today is Guru Purnima. Do you have a guru in your life? And can you tell us a little bit about who that person might be?
Um, I wouldn't say I have one specific guru in my life, but I I I like to read a lot, and I have a lot of influences from my family. I guess like my mom would be like my biggest influence or my guru to me. To She is one of the people that have taught me so much about how to live my life and how to be a good person. So to me, I don't necessarily have someone else that I see as a guru, but to me, my mom would be my biggest teacher, if anything. So yeah, I would say my mom.
Thank you. Our last question for the night. Do you think that there's a deeper connection between self-expression, fashion, beauty, and spirituality?
Yes, absolutely. Because there's definitely a way to express yourself through fashion, through art. But I think when you're really connected to your spiritual side, you really dive into something deeper than the external who you are. Like the you that you think you are versus who you really are on the inside. Sometimes we have to dig a little bit to get to that point, to really understand who you are and your purpose and why you are on this earth, and what change you're going to make in this world. And so for me personally, my spiritual journey has been all about finding that purpose. And once you find that purpose, it becomes a lot easier to express yourself through art, through anything that you do, the way you live, the way you eat, the way you do everything, the way you treat people. All of that, I think, stems from spiritually being aware and being conscious and being open to your inner self. I think I like to say, we experience everything outside of ourselves only within ourselves. So anything you see on the outside, anything you do on the outside, it all comes from within. And I think when we focus inwards and we are on that spiritual journey, it enhances everything you do on the outside. I think it brings a different type of beauty and a different type of soul to every single thing that you do, a different type of passion. So for me, like being on the spiritual journey has been like so guiding, and it's given me so much clarity as to what I want to do, why I do what I do, being aware of my actions and how they affect everything around me. I think all of these things I've only come to that understanding after pursuing my spiritual journey. And this journey, it's an everyday thing, it's a way of life. You don't just do something, you don't just meditate one day and you suddenly feel different. It's a way of living, it's a way of being. And I think once you start becoming more aware of yourself and aware of this beautiful life that we've been given, everything you do starts to just become a little bit more magical. And that's how I like to see it. And that's what I want to spread through fashion and arts and everything that I put out. And I think every one of us has that inside of us. And the more you learn to look inwards and the more you learn about yourself and what's within you, that magic of who you are can really be spread through all of your artistic expression. So I think, yeah, it plays a huge role in who we are and how we express ourselves. And spirituality is something that it's within all of us, and it's just a matter of taking that time out and taking that extra effort to really pursue it and to really be on that path versus being on a materialistic path. So that spiritual path is something that it's a higher calling, and not everyone may be aware of it, but I think once you do get in touch with that, it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Before we conclude, do you have any last minute remarks you would like to make, or how did you feel about joining today's webinar?
I'm just so thrilled to have been a part of this. I think a lot of these questions, we don't ask ourselves often enough, and it's really great to become more introspective and realize why we're doing a lot of the things that we're doing instead of just doing them. It's good to question, our intention and like kind of the root of where a lot of these things are stemming from. And I think for a lot of us young people, we don't just want to do things, we want to know why we're doing them, and we want to have a purpose behind our actions. And I hope more young people are inspired by, a lot of these different things to kind of pursue like their passions and really live life to the fullest. I think the most important thing in this world is to live your life to fulfill your dharma. And I think it's a lot of these discussions, things like this, it's very important because sometimes we may forget and we're distracted with so many different things in the world, so many things are happening. So I think it's great to look inward and kind of get a deeper understanding of why you are doing the certain things that you're doing. And yeah, I'm just so happy to have joined you guys, and thank you guys so much for having me. It's truly been a pleasure and an honor. I'm so grateful to have been a part of this.
Thank you so much. I loved hearing your perspective on everything.
Yeah, thank you so much for being a part of this initiative. It really meant a lot, especially for girls like me that really relate to this topic. So for the audience, please do subscribe to our Northeast in the UVA channel, and please do like our Facebook page, Northeast in the UVA. And without a further ado, I will quickly introduce the topic for next week. So our next week's topic will be the queer Hindu spectrum, sexuality and gender fluidity in Hinduism. Our speakers will be Amit Shah and Aditya Madiraju, a well-known Indian influencer couple. So join us next week for our 4th webinar. Thank you all for joining. Shubhratri, Dhanyavad, and Namaste.